Hello everyone, my name is Yuko Tomoto. I'm an associate professor of Yokohama College of Commerce in Japan. Today, I would like to talk about the language influence on speakers and second language self-image. First, let me introduce our college briefly. It is located in Yokohama, a suburb of Tokyo. We have about 1,300 students and 100 professors. We have 3 courses of commerce, IT management, and tourism. Only 20% of our students are female, mostly majoring in tourism, and 10% of all students are international students, mostly from Asian countries such as mainland China or Vietnam. For all the students, we offer 3-year mandatory English classes twice a week, 1 conversation and 1 grammar. And these English classes are not so welcomed by most students, unfortunately. I have been trying to find the effective way to motivate our students. It is sometimes very hard because our students are not English majors and some of them have strong allergy for English after 6 years of English learning at high schools and junior high schools. Also, Japan is not really a multilingual country, and some students simply don't see the necessities of acquiring English. However, at the same time, they are strongly encouraged to study English hard under the strong government policy, and English proficiency is becoming one of the key factors for the success in the society. Under this kind of circumstances, some diligent students can have themselves well organized to study English hard. However, many of our students cannot picture themselves using English in the future and have hard time finding the reasons to take many mandatory English classes. So, I have been using one idea to motivate my students to engage in English learning from a new viewpoint. The idea is that language could affect the speaker and help create new ideal second language self. Some of my old students told me that they felt like being totally new persons when using English, more sociable, likable, and culturally free, and I thought it could be one means to motivate students. Ideal second language self can be a new approach to English education in Japan. Now, let me introduce major previous studies in this field. Irving Tripp conducted interviews on bilingual speakers of Japanese and English, and she stated, "Bilinguals are, in essence, 2 persons in one mind, and they possess 2 sets of concepts and mental networks, 2 channels, each of these associated with one of their 2 natural languages." Another statement was made by Burton. She also had interviews with bilingual speakers of Japanese and English and said, "One may therefore give a cultural response in one language, which may differ from one's response in another, and both responses would be true, but only in the language in which they were spoken." McCarthy observed how bilingual speakers change their ways of talking depending on the language they use and led these conclusions. He stated that bilingual speakers with English mother tongue speak more softly and politely when they speak Japanese compared with when they speak English, being conscious of Japanese culture and society. By acquiring Japanese, they have become more careful and guarded even when they speak their native language, English. On the contrary, bilingual speakers with Japanese mother tongue tend to talk more directly when they speak English. By acquiring English, they have come to talk more openly and straightforward, even when they speak Japanese. This picture of iceberg analogy of culture also shows that the language and its culture are interrelated closely. Weaver said, that the language and its vocabularies are based on the deep hidden internal cultural iceberg. So when we speak one language, we are always unconsciously influenced by its background culture, and therefore bilingual speakers are sometimes pointed out that they change their ways of talking or what they say depending on the language they use. Now, let me show you some of the examples of differences between Japanese and English languages. As the chart indicates, when we talk about our sister in Japanese, we have to indicate whether the sister is older or younger than ourselves. Otherwise, we cannot sound natural in Japanese. The same thing is applied to brothers as well. On the contrary, as for the word to describe foot or leg, we have only one word ashi to cover both parts. So, when Japanese speakers hear the English sentence, Naomi went shopping with her sister yesterday, we immediately wonder whether Naomi's sister is younger or older than her, and we feel uncomfortable not having enough information about it. This is closely connected with Japanese language's background culture, which is more age-sensitive compared with English-speaking countries' cultures. Another difference between Japanese and English is that English is more number-sensitive compared with Japanese. When we see dogs, in English we usually make clear how many dogs we see. For example, there is a dog, or there are dogs, or there are 3 dogs, and so on. In Japanese, however, we do not so often make the number clear, and we simply state we see dog. Listeners don't get the information about the quantity of the dogs, but it's not so important in Japanese. So, when English speaker would refer to his family by, I have a brother and 2 sisters, Japanese speaker would focus more on whether a brother is older or younger than the speaker, and focus less on the number of sisters. There are big differences about personal pronouns too. English has simple personal pronoun, I and you. On the contrary, Japanese has various personal pronouns, and they all show social relationship between speaker and interlocutor, which is older, younger, or who has higher social status, or so on. And partly because of that, we often omit these personal pronouns and subjects in our conversation. English's pronouns I and you sound very equal to Japanese learners of English, and therefore some of them feel freer to talk to the person with higher status or elderly people in English. Also, starting sentences with I without omitting subject in the conversation makes Japanese learners of English feel easier to express their thoughts and opinions more explicitly and actively. There are differences of cultural concepts too. When we compare the word difference, there is not special meaning in English besides simply referring there is a difference. It's neutral. However, in Japanese, the word chigai, difference, often brings negative tone. Japanese culture values harmony and unity, and being different means more than just simply different, and this influences Japanese speakers. Japanese is also known characteristic for having true women's language. Younger generations employ women's language less frequently. However, there still exist much differences between male and female Japanese languages. Some female foreigners who feel uncomfortable about having their words being translated into typical feminine Japanese when they originally make their remarks in English with neutral tones and find later on that they sound so womanly after being translated into Japanese. To find out the influence of language and culture on speakers, I conducted a survey, and today I'm going to talk about the results of the questionnaire and also share a little about the reports by the students whom I took to US on our school's summer intensive English program. There were 10 questions about the language in the questionnaire, and today I will share some of the results here. Question 1. Do you think the language you speak affects the way you think or talk? Do you feel any differences when you speak in Japanese compared to when you speak in English? 79% answered yes, and 20% said no. Question 2. Which do you like better, yourself speaking in Japanese or in English? 66% chose Japanese, their native language, and 21% chose English. Question 3. Have you been told by your friends or family that your impression, behavior, or voice pitch changes depending on the language you use? 30% answered yes, and a supplementary question, how different they say you were, was asked to those 116 subjects. 80% of them answered that they were told that they become more extrovert in English. 15% were told that they become more introvert in English. These are the comments from the subjects. I was brought up in very traditional Japanese culture and was often told to talk or act in a more feminine way. My friend says that when I speak Japanese, I sound less confident about myself or about what I say, but when I speak English, I sound more cheerful and confident. In English, I am expected to speak more directly and clearly, and people doesn't get offended by that, so I can talk freely. Also, English has many straightforward expressions or idioms, and I feel comfortable talking frankly using them without worrying about people's reactions. My English vocabulary is poor and I cannot convey the detailed messages in English. Question 4. Do you know anyone whose impression, behavior, or voice pitch changes depending on the language he or she uses? 60% answered yes, and the supplementary question was asked to them. 75% know someone who become more extrovert in English. My female friend obviously sounds much more lively when she speaks English, and she notices it herself too. She seems to feel no cultural pressures when she speaks English. My friend never talks about her family openly in Japanese, but in English, she speaks well of her husband and is often proud of her children. Perhaps less social pressures? Just like myself, my friend sounds negatively when he speaks English due to his relatively low English ability. Interesting thing is that we can find great similarities between these two charts. Almost 3/4, 75% and 80% of subjects chose more extrovert in English, and almost 15% chose more introvert in both cases. I see some possibilities here to use this phenomena to motivate our students, something like using language learning as a tool to create new images. So when I took a group of students to US during summer break as an intensive English program, I tried to closely watch how the students change in 2 weeks, both language ability-wise and personality-wise. There were 14 students in the group, and all of them had strong desires to improve English, communicate better with native speakers, and enjoy experiencing American culture. Also, most of them told me at the pre-program interview that they want to change themselves and become more confident about themselves. These are the photos from the program. We had 12 English classes by native professors at our affiliate school, University of Pittsburgh. Classes were mainly held in the mornings, and we enjoyed varieties of activities on and off campus in the afternoons. Students experienced many new things, faced some difficulties, and eventually improved their self-esteem. They wrote post-program reports after they flew back to Japan. I analyzed the students' reports with word cloud. Bigger words mean the frequently used words, and surprisingly the words appear are mostly positive. This is the frequency of the word used. I read all the students' reports and was so much impressed and touched that most of them thought this was a life-changing experience for them, and literally all of them are so appreciative of the program and highly motivated to keep learning English much harder than before. I put the reports in the text mining and brought 2 students' results today. This student is a male sophomore and he's very quiet in a regular class in Japan. He was in my freshman English class last year and in my sophomore class this year again, but I have hardly heard him open his mouth nor communicate with his classmates. He is so quiet. However, through this program in US, he had surprisingly changed, become wonderfully positive, active, communicative, and sociable. He told me that when he used English, especially with totally new people, he felt like he could become a new person with more outgoing character. He is using many positive words in his reports and sound very different from usual. This is another student's report text mining result. He was also a very shy and quiet and passive student, especially because he was one of the youngest students and tried to pay respect to older students. However, he has changed a lot through the program. When speaking in English, he doesn't have to use special respective way to older students, nor even to professors. So he felt so equal and free to express his feelings and started to take initiative of the group. He told me that he originally had this outgoing and sociable trait when he was little and somehow hidden it inside in Japan. And he felt so comfortable and more likable himself in English when he speaks English. He also uses many positive words and said that this 2 week was the best time of his whole 20 year of life, and he definitely improved his English and go back to UPB, University of Pittsburgh, as a long-term exchange student. These are extracts from other students' reports. I experienced many new things and became much more confident about myself because I could fit in new and unexpected situations well, even with joy too. That was a great finding about myself. Putting myself in English-speaking environment gave me good chances to communicate with people. Even in Japan, I was not good at associating with people, but through this program, I could change my introvert nature a lot. I felt more outgoing and capable when I spoke English, though my English ability was poor. To find myself fully enjoy 2 weeks in the new environment using English brought me a great confidence about my personality and potentiality. English helps me with creating a new image of myself, and I like it. I would like to keep studying English hard to become more ideal myself. As a conclusion, I would like to say these 3 things today. 1. Language and culture are inseparable. Speakers are influenced by both language and its background culture. 2. Some people change the way they talk depending on the language they use or the person they talk to. They are constantly constructing and updating their identities through empathy with interlocutors. 3. Creating ideal second language self can be the motive for English learners in monolingual country. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much everyone for listening.